Hi everyone, thanks for opening this video message so that I can share with you some of what is happening at Grace. Today I'm sure many of you are wondering what this new phase of reopening in the state of Illinois might mean for us here at Grace. Each segment of our community is having to rethink how they do business, how they entertain, how they provide goods and services. And of course, the church is also thinking through what it means to be the church in such a time as this. It's not been easy to sift through the information, some from scientists, some from public health agencies or academic institutions, some from politicians, some from neighbors or Facebook or workplaces. I spent several days this past week researching and writing a policy for Grace, using several sources, including our state reports, the Center for Disease Control, the Illinois Department of Public Health, the Northern Illinois Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church, other conferences, church consultants, other denominations, etc. The staff then spent 3 hours together on Zoom poring over the policy and making practical changes and revisions. You will be receiving this guide from us that will shape our behavior in using the church property for the coming weeks or months, however long this portion of our battle against COVID-19 lasts. I have to tell you, this phase we are entering and the one that follows seem to me to be the most difficult and probably the most critical. As we find our footing in this new online arena, it would be much easier to simply stay here as the one way to guarantee that the church will never be the source of this disease for anyone. But we also have to ask, in doing so, is the church truly being the church? That's the question with which we've been wrestling and will continue to wrestle. And how do we negotiate between opening safely and opening faithfully? At what point would the protocol for coming together in our sanctuary limit our ability to truly worship, even more than our current online church? At what point does the risk of bringing people together overshadow the comfort of being together? This is how Alex Shanks addresses that question in an article that just came out this morning from the Lewis Center for Church Leadership. I'm going to share his thoughts with you. Churches will need to consider how the changes required to reopen safely could adversely impact the nature and integrity of worship and ministry. Churches will need to make sure that any expression of worship that requires diligent mitigation still reflects the values and essence of who God has called the church to be. In many ways, we are called to honor the vulnerable above all others. What does it say theologically about us if we open in a way that excludes the vulnerable? How may we need to adapt when it is someone in leadership who is vulnerable? Didn't we read somewhere that the first shall be last and the last shall be first? Christ's primary call is to serve others, especially the vulnerable, the weak, and the poor. Our reopening plans are not about what is best for the management of our institution, but what is best for the common good and the greater community. This is not a time to focus primarily on what we may be sacrificing by not gathering, but how are we serving and loving all our neighbors by not gathering too soon? As Alex's word infers, phase 3 of reopening will require a deep level of trust. First, your trust in us as your leaders. In that vein, I make you this promise, that we will not allow politics or finances or even emotions to guide our decisions. We will stay informed as best we can and pray and discern as God leads us to a via media, a middle way that negotiates between the extremes. We will also listen. Let us know what you're thinking and what you need. We also need to know as leaders that we can trust you as the people of grace. You may be much further outside the lines in your view of what constitutes a risk. I'm glad for you if you are healthy enough to re-enter at a more accelerated pace. But we as the church need to act as a body united, and not as a collective of persons who need to assert their own autonomy. Again, Alex Shanks says it better than I can. Churches are notoriously ineffective at getting people to follow new rules and guidelines. Even when we do, we always have an exception. You picture persons in your own family who continue to do things the way they have always done them, despite all your efforts to change their habits. Churches lack an enforcement mechanism and are often too kind for their own good. So we need a new culture, and this new culture will be marked by a willingness to put the safety of others ahead of our personal preferences and willingness to hold ourselves and others accountable. It will require a culture that is willing to call someone out with love and with clarity when they see a new protocol slipping. Safely reopening will only be possible through a mass commitment to new norms and a culture that is constantly asking, how can we help not be the one to make someone else sick? So we at Grace aim toward the goal of fully opening in order to fully worship while being able to fully include everyone safely. These guidelines may seem excessive to those who are ready to move forward, to get back to normal, but an outbreak caused by the willful actions of members or guests ignoring the guidelines on Grace property would negatively impact this community of faith, not to mention the families impacted for decades to come. So I ask you, please honor those who have sacrificed their attendance at family weddings, funerals, graduations, those who've missed being at the bedside of a loved one, those who have missed half a school year or 4 months of employment income. Please be sensitive to others and discerning how you will behave. This won't last forever. So let's err on the side of safety during this transitional phase 3 and continue to encourage one another to gather in all the ways we can until the day when this all will be behind us. God is with us in all the ways we are together, apart. Let us show unity with all who are suffering and alone, for by doing so, we honor Christ in our midst. I hope you have a great week, and we will see you online Sunday.